Welcome to the official Lawyer Minds podcast. Lawyer Minds is an ever-growing ecosystem for all the resources modern lawyers need. As the official Lawyer Minds podcast, we'll discuss everything from the latest happenings on the website to industry news. Get ready. Here we go. It's time to dive into the minds of successful lawyers. Here are your hosts, Ted Thomas and Mike Campbell.
Well, Mike, we're doing this podcast the Monday after a Friday defense verdict that I got. So, yay me.
Yeah, it happens. What was a five-day long med mal?
Yeah, it was a short one. We settled with a couple defendants and then had one left. So, couldn't bring it home.
That happens. I had a conversation with a client last week and I explained that the success rate on these medical malpractice cases are very, very slim, but that our firm takes them and litigates them because it's the right thing to do. So you got in there and you did the right thing.
Yeah, we had a good time. You know, I love trying cases. Sucks to lose, but, you know, you got to be in the courtroom.
The fear of losing keeps I hate losing more than I like winning. And I think that's pretty common, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
The fear of losing, I think, causes people to become paralyzed and frozen where they're at. And so I asked a lawyer recently, what do you think accounts for the lack of trials? And I don't know if it's a lot of we're concerned about losing. These cases cost a lot to litigate. Or what accounts for it. But the fact of the matter is you sometimes just have to put on your boots and get in there and swing away.
Yeah. Well, and, you know, we always say, and I think it's true, you learn more from your losses. You know, like I can point to like 5 things that I would do differently if I had it to do over again. I don't know that it would have made a difference in the case. It was a tough case anyway. But, you know, you really do, you know, learn. You know, and we've got in our file vine, it pops up after trial. One of the tasks after a few days is, you know, set a meeting with the team to, you know, debrief what worked, what didn't work, and, you know, go through lessons learned.
Yeah. Case autopsy.
Absolutely. Yeah. Internal case autopsy for sure.
I remember a few years ago, I sat down with an associate after losing a trial. And I said, the day after, and I said, hey, could you list all the things that I should have done differently? And she was a little reluctant. And I said, okay, I've written down 15. So let's go through them. And then
let's go through my list.
Yeah, let's look at my list first. And so then we talked about them. And even you know, the losing doesn't feel good, but I was like, hey, this will help me the next time around. This will help me the next time around.
Well, talking about somebody who knows how to try cases, our next guest, Lisa Blue, certainly knows how to do that. So really looking forward to having her on.
She's incredible. I mean, her reputation precedes her anywhere she goes, right? I think when you talk about some of the top trial lawyers in the country, Lisa Blue comes to everyone's mind. I know she works really closely with Mark Lanier, another really, really outstanding trial lawyer. And I'm just really excited to talk with her about her book and another new venture she has coming up.
I'm going to say we have a little surprise on the podcast. So without further ado, Lisa Blue, and listen for the end for a surprise. The Lawyer Minds podcast are brought to you by Gavel Video. Some companies do videography, but Gavel Video does high quality cinematography to highlight your firm's successes. Also brought to you by Legal Insights, providing expert digital marketing for law firms. And finally brought to you by iLitigate, trial presentation software for trial lawyers by trial lawyers. And now to our program. Lisa, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Thank you, Tad. Very happy to be here.
Well, I obviously am very familiar with you and your work as a past president of AAJ, but tell us a little bit about your law practice now and your firm.
Well, it's interesting. Since my husband died in 2008, I basically have been on my own. I've just been doing serious injury cases. And then when the pandemic hit, a lawyer named Deborah Chang, who's a great lawyer from California, asked me if I wanted to join this virtual all women's law firm called Athea. And so it is me and Deborah Chang, my friend here, Charla Aldis, Zoe Littlepage, Randy McGinn, and BB Feld. So what we do, we got together on national cases and we each sort of bring our own specialty. And it's what I really love about it is you get to work with the coolest people. These women are just, they're badasses. I don't know what else to say. And everybody brings to the table something different. But, when we sit around and talk about case themes and visuals, I just feel like I got lucky. I got the best in the country to work with.
I'd love to be
I've been running for about 2 years.
I'd love to be a fly on the wall, because talk about rock stars all in one room. That you all could probably do a podcast and a CLE just of you all talking about cases. It'd be amazing.
Yeah, thank you. It's fun, and at this stage in my life, it's really what I love doing. I love being with people that I think are smart and care and really love what they do, and they love the client. That's my idea of a dream job. So you asked me about my firm. So it went from Barron and Budd, and at one time it was the largest environmental firm. And I know Ness Motley was also out there, but we only did environmental. So I got really lucky. I got to try a gazillion asbestos cases. And before I did that, I was an assistant DA, and I got to try 125 criminal cases.
Wow.
Just back to back, misdemeanors, felonies, child abuse, organized crime. And I really love that. And I just fell in love with being in court. But the way I got started was kind of interesting, because I started law school in Dallas and then got a great job opportunity in Houston. And it was heading up a psychiatric hospital for adolescents with drug problems. And so what happened was, in Houston in the 80s, the greatest trial lawyers, Joe Jamail, Racehorse Haynes, all the greats were in Houston. They weren't in Dallas. That's because the juries were really good in Houston. And what I found is that when you've got a good jurisdiction, that's where the plaintiff's lawyers will go. So it turned out that my patient population, I'd say 95% of my kids with drug problems, their fathers, it was fathers, it wasn't really mothers back then, fathers were trial lawyers. And then one day, one of my patients' father said to me, "Hey, do you want to come to court and help me pick a jury?" Wow. And it was a time when there was no such thing as jury psychologist. And I felt so out of place in the courtroom and so embarrassed, because the defense lawyer stood up and said, "Does anybody know Dr. Blue? She's here to analyze you and to look at you to see what you're going to see, how you're going to rule on her case." So anyway, wow. I fell in love with the courtroom then.
Yeah. So do you still help lawyers pick juries?
I do. I'm sort of toward the end of my career. I've been a trial lawyer for 42 years and a jury and a psychologist for 45. And so I've been working for Mark Lanier, who I think is really superb. He's just, he's so creative. And he's been my mentor, because I have a lot of learning disabilities, and he really helped me see trials and strategy in visual terms. So I still work for him. I've been picking juries for Mark Lanier for about 35 years.
Wow.
And then I do some, I really prefer to try cases.
Yeah.
But so that's my status right now.
Well,
just being part of the team. That's my motto.
Yeah. So tell us about the new book you have coming up.
Well, it came from an old book that I wrote during COVID. Again, it was all inspired by Mark Lanier because the book that came out during COVID that I wrote was all pictures. It's a picture book. And it's a book on how to pick a jury. And each page is a visual concept. And then on the other side of the page is the concept that goes with the picture. And so here is the new book. Mm-hmm. Being a trial lawyer for almost half a century, and Tad, you know this, being a great trial lawyer yourself, and being so high tech and really understanding jurors, you can have the greatest case in the world. You can be so prepared, which you always are when you go into court. And if you've got a really garbage judge, you've got a judge that doesn't understand trials, doesn't understand trial lawyers, it's probably not going to go well for you. And so I decided, being a psychologist and a lawyer, my passion is trial judges for this reason. I can't think of anything I could do that's more important to help the plaintiffs bar, because I, like you, because you were president of AAJ, and what we have in common is we both love trial lawyers. And this is the best way to help them, is to help their judge be a better judge. That's what you want. So the book is called Social and Emotional Intelligence for Judges. And the theme is, the background, there is nothing in the literature that will help these judges with their social skills. I have been looking at judge conference, because I always say, hey, what's your conference about? What are your topics? And nothing on social and emotional intelligence. And because judges are in the service business, they really need to know and understand people, I think, in a lot deeper way than they do now.
Mm-hmm. When do you expect it to come out?
It'll be published next year. I'm working on redoing all the slides. Basically, it's done. What I'm really excited and nervous, and I feel very insecure about, is I'm starting to give the book as a speech to judges.
Okay.
And it lasts too long, but if it's okay, I'll tell you some of the things that are in the book.
Yeah.
One of my favorite, it's the last section. It's the jury room. And I feel like I'm giving a money back guarantee. I can guarantee the judges that they will not have a hung jury if they do the following things. And what they are in the jury room, they're all kind of bonding exercises that the jury would do together. For example, I've been on 3 juries, and I'm an introvert, and it's very intimidating to be, you're thrown in a room with 12 strangers. And so something as simple to put on the wall, everybody go around the room and tell us your 3 favorite apps and why you think it tells something about you. I mean, there are all kind of things you can do. Mm-hmm. And the premise is, if you want 12 people to do you a favor, i.e., sit there for a week or 10 days or however long, try to make the experience as good as possible. And it starts with the environment. So that's one thing. Another thing is social skills for judges on the bench. Mm-hmm. Like just something simple like getting off the bench and shaking hands with jurors when they leave. Because in Texas, they run for re-election. Or here's another, how to deal with their interns. What kind of activities can you do with the interns? Because the judges, they want to teach the interns how to do briefs, right? And do legal stuff. But the judges don't do anything in life skills, like how to interview for a job or introducing clerks to lawyers that maybe can help them down the road. So that's important. All kind of, just, it's all fun stuff. I have been wanting to write this book for 25 years. I've been collecting things that I love a judge does and that I hate. So anyway, I get so excited just talking about it.
So, Lisa, I'm excited about reading the book, but I have a couple trials coming up before the book probably gets published. So I don't want to do any spoilers from the book itself, but what might a good advocate do to help the judge have some emotional intelligence about the case, have some empathy for your client, have some empathy for the circumstances?
The first thing I think to help your judge is to really give them some ideas on how to start the trial. You know, as a psychologist, I'm always telling lawyers in jury selection, you start strong and you end strong. That's what people remember. And so the best introduction I've ever had from a judge is the words, "Members of the jury panel, you're in for a treat. We have great lawyers, an interesting case, and you get to make a difference." The worst introduction was, "I know nobody wants to be here, but we have to have X number of people." So you asked me a question about what can you do. The first part of the book is a menu of all these cool things the judge can say to make people want to serve. And again, I know as a psychologist, you don't want people to serve if they don't want to be there. And I say that in the book. If people they hate being there, they have a horrible attitude, and you're saying you are going to serve because it's your civic duty, that's not really good for either side. Mm-hmm. But it's, how to make people really feel good. Like, here's another tip that I have, is to tell the judge to say to the jury panel, "Members of the jury panel, our United States government asks 3 things. That's only just 3 things of us as citizens. Number 1, serve in the military if it's appropriate, if you can do that. Number 2, our government asks of you, pay your taxes. And number 3, serve on a jury." And this is why it's so important, because if you don't, and again, remember, I have visuals with all this. If you say, "Oh, I just don't want to be here," then do you know what happens? We become like Russia and China. And those are 2 words. When Americans hear those 2 words, they do not want to be like those 2 countries. They do not. And they say, "Okay, now I understand the importance." So, all kind of little, they're to-do tips. They're not abstract. The whole point of the book is try things to get you outside of the box. Think outside the box. But I, as a psychologist, I've never been a judge. I'm not telling you how to act in the court. I'm asking you to be open, to try all these new social skills that are going to make your life easier and happier so you don't get burned out.
I'm really excited about this book. We've got a whole new, we just did our judicial elections in Kentucky, and we've got a slew of brand new judges. They're going to be taking the bench in January. And, and some of them, I mean, we have a really good bench coming up. I really like it, but so many of them I think would be open to just that kind of advice that you're going to give. So I'm proud to announce that you're also going to be doing a podcast series with us around your book. So talk to us about what you want to do with the podcast.
Well, it's a great question. Here's my theory. You have all these new judges coming up, right? They want to do a great job. The problem is you've got all these old judges who are at the end of their career. And these older judges who've been on the bench for 50 years or more have great advice. So I'm thinking, how are we going to get those great judges the information to the new young judges? And so my thought is I'm going to ask lawyers all over the United States, like I'd ask Mike, I'd ask Tad, and I'd say, pick one judge or two or even three and interview them for the podcast. It's called How to Be a Great Trial Judge. And the point of the podcast is to have it be 15 or 20 minutes so that the judges can listen to it in their car. Because we know they're very busy. They don't have extra time to read but you can always learn in your car. And so it's like a mini judicial conference every time they get in their car. And now, Mike and Tad, you've got your best judges giving advice to the new judges, or maybe somebody who needs a tune-up on what you need to do to be a great judge, how to handle lawyers who won't behave, how to keep control of your courtroom. What should your rules be? Should you do hardships before voir dire? How do you handle jurors that don't want to be there? How do you handle I thought this was cute. A judge told me the other day she had an alternate who was on the jury listening to the evidence, but they had a pod in their ear and they were listening to rap. And if you got real quiet, the whole courtroom could hear it. And then so she had to handle that. And, a new judge might yell at they might not know how to handle it. Anyway, you got just so much great information to spread. So,
yeah, I love that idea. I love the idea of giving an avenue for judges with wisdom to communicate that to judges all across the country. You've got such a great name in this area and such a great background. I have a feeling that it's going to be very well received.
So, Lisa, one of the things that I notice when I'm listening to good storytellers and great trial lawyers is this connection I have. And I could listen to you talk all day long. Yeah. What do you think accounts for that? I mean, what's the secret sauce?
Oh my gosh, you made my year.
Oh.
Just passion, loving what you do.
Well, Lisa, thanks so much for being on the podcast. We really, really appreciate it. We're looking so much forward to the book and to your podcast series. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Tad and Mike. It's a pleasure. And thank you so much for all y'all do. You're my heroes.
Oh, you're our hero.
Bye, guys.
Well, I'm excited to have Lisa as part of the Lawyer Minds family doing a podcast. I think this is going to be, like I said, she's just such a phenomenal name and resource. I think the judges across the country are going to get a lot out of this podcast.
Yeah. And if someone has the credibility to do a podcast like that, it's her.
Right. And the training and the background, the experience trying cases. I mean, gosh, I guess I had forgotten. I think I knew at one point that she was a prosecutor and forgotten that.
125 trials as prosecutors, the DA. That's a lot of trials.
Yeah. Yeah. So going to be a great podcast. Looking forward to her getting started on that and, helping her get that out to the masses. And I wish the book was already out. Like I said, we've got a slew of new judges taking the bench in Kentucky. And I know a lot of them would, the book would be well received because they want to be good judges.
And we're seeing so many judges appointed at the federal level too, that are coming from different sectors. I think a lot of people in our generation have some of that emotional intelligence that she was describing. And maybe some of them have the social intelligence, or vice versa, could be lacking in the emotional and have some of the social. To be able to talk about this openly, I can't wait, like you said, to read the book. I'm going to listen to this podcast all the time. For me, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, because I think about it, and obviously it's going to be tough. How do you communicate to a judge, especially one that's been on the bench for several years? Hey, would you consider doing these things that we think, might result in a better trial and a more engaged jury? I guess we got to go judge by judge to decide whether or not it's appropriate in that particular court. But I know several that would be, very open to, they want to, just like we want to improve on how we do our job, they do too.
Yeah, and no, we've tried a case with a judge who I think would be open to that. And I think there's other judges who I wouldn't even broach the subject with.
Right.
But I wonder, if we could frame it in the context of the statement of the case. Look, can we use this space to also educate the jurors on the importance of being here? Because if it comes from us, it seems sort of superficial and hollow.
Right.
So there are a couple of ways to think about it. And in mine, that's the way I'm thinking about it. Okay, can I get the judge to read sort of the soliloquy from the statement of the case? Or do I have the comfort level with the judge to be able to ask them to consider just communicating them, how grateful we are to have the jurors there?
Well, Mike, another good podcast. Until next time.
Ryan, this was amazing, and I cannot wait to listen to our new podcast here with Lisa Blue.
That wraps another episode of the official Lawyer Minds podcast. Please consider subscribing to the show wherever you listen to podcasts. Explore the other content Lawyer Minds has to offer and engage with us on social media. Your feedback on the show and ideas for future shows is always welcomed. See you next time.